Hey guys, it's Alex from 7th Hour Films, and today I am reviewing the newest movie from DC Comics, Wonder Woman. Yeah, I'm a day late and a dollar short. I know everyone has talked about this, but that's just who I am. I'm a bit slow. But that doesn't matter. Let's talk about Wonder Woman. Holy crap. So I just saw it, and you might can tell I'm kind of excited and happy. But let's stick with the format. Let's dive into the story. So, the story is that 100 years ago, during the First World War, Diana, the Princess of Themyscira, is just kind of chilling, enjoying life, kind of training for the eventual return of Ares, the god of war. Because the Amazons are they were sort of tasked with the mission of destroying Ares if he ever came back. Then, Steve Trevor, played by Chris Pine, sort of stumbles into Themyscira. Oh, excuse me. Kind of stumbles into Themyscira, and he informs the Amazons of this, great war that's going on. So many people have died, innocent people, and Diana believes that this can only be the work of Ares, the god of war. Only he could create a war this destructive and this devastating. So she decides to take some weapons, a shield, the lasso of truth, the bracelets, the really cool bracelets, and the God Killer sword, and she takes all that stuff, knowing that the God Killer sword is the only thing that can kill Ares, and she goes with Steve Trevor to the war. And that's kind of the story, is they're going through the war. She's looking for Ares. He's trying to stop the Germans from creating this super gas weapon, because basically because Steve Trevor is a spy, he finds out that the Germans are developing a gas weapon that can actually break through gas masks, which would be very, very dangerous for them to have, so he's trying to get rid of that. She's going along to try to get to Ares, and that's kind of that, and it's all, fun and stuff. Which I can basically just say about this movie is, it's fun. Boy, did I have fun in this movie. It has its serious moments, and they're well earned, but the whole thing is not a downer like previous DC films. And I do actually like DC films. I don't really acknowledge that they're particularly good movies. I'd say Man of Steel is good, but if you notice the tone of that, I don't just say, Man of Steel is good. And I say it's good. It's on the border of being mediocre. Jeez. I apologize if I seem a little sweaty. I've been sweaty all day. There was no air conditioning in my theater when I was watching this. That was awful. Luckily, I was watching an amazing movie. Spoiler alert, I think this movie's amazing. I was watching an amazing movie, so I kind of just, didn't care. I was just enjoying the movie so much, I didn't really care how hot it was in that theater. But yeah, freaking AMC, be sure that your air conditioning is on. That was pretty bad. Alright, who cares? But yeah, so Man of Steel is good, borderline mediocre, I would say. Batman v Superman is kind of that way too. I'd say there are good elements of Batman v Superman, but a lot of bad elements too. I don't like the villain. I did like Batman, and I liked Wonder Woman in that movie. She was probably the highlight of that movie. But I think the story was convoluted. I didn't like Lex Luthor. And I think that Superman was poorly written. And because this is nothing on Henry Cavill, but I think the character is poorly written. He's a fine Superman. I actually don't mind him as Superman. But I think honestly, I'll just say it. It's Goyer. We all know it's David S. Goyer. He's the problem with these DC films. And you know what? He was not in Wonder Woman. And I guess I shouldn't completely say it's David S. Goyer, because he didn't do anything with Suicide Squad. But Suicide Squad still has its problems. I'd say that Suicide Squad's problem was maybe too much studio interference. Maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe Wonder Woman got some studio interference, but I don't think so from what I've heard. So yeah, I think it's the studios and David S. Goyer that kind of really dragged down those previous DC films, but none of those binds, I guess, are on Wonder Woman, which is great. This movie does not feel restrained by DC or David S. Goyer's crappy writing. It feels new and fun and good. And like I said, it has some serious moments, but it's very nice and heartwarming and just fun. It's just fun, and it's colorful too, and it's World War I. It's World War I. It should not be colorful, but it is. It's a very colorful film, and I really applaud that. I should take a drink before we move on to characters. Alright. Characters. Let's start with Wonder Woman herself. She's great. It's a bit of a different performance from Wonder Woman in Batman v Superman, because this is an origin story. And so she's very, I'd say, sort of wide-eyed, sort of seeing the world as it is. And, you know, she's basically the fish out of water. Whereas in Batman v Superman, you can tell she's had 100 years to really grasp humanity and understand it. And it's definitely a different character in Batman v Superman, but that's okay, because this is the origin. And she is the fish out of water. She's kind of... The best way I can describe her is if her character is almost like a mixture of Thor and Captain America. She's very, she's very nice and kind and sweet, similar to Captain America, and very naive about some things, but she's also still a warrior, like Thor. So if you take those and because Captain America and Thor have both been the fish out of water, more notably Captain America in Winter Soldier when he's adapting to the modern day, but it's not really much of a fish out of water story. Thor, in his first movie, definitely had the fish out of water story, but if you take both aspects, if you take aspects of both characters and put them together, I'd say you'd have Wonder Woman's character, which is great. It's a perfect blend, and I really liked her in this film. Other characters. Steve Trevor. He's great. Honestly, it's Chris Pine. Chris Pine is kind of like, I suppose, the new Will Smith. He's completely charming in anything he does, and it's kind of, I guess you could say, similar to Will Smith. It's a very Chris Pine performance. Not to sort of, like, that might sound bad, but maybe you know what I mean. But it's very, like, it's definitely a different character from when he's like Captain Kirk or anyone else that Chris Pine has played. Some of his movies, Finest Hours, stuff like that. But it's definitely a different character, but still very Chris Pine-y, if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't. That was probably a horrible way to put that, but yeah. But he's great. He is really great. Now the one thing I'm going to point out is because I saw this with my parents, and they're theater people. And my dad was actually complaining that this was like a minor complaint for him, but everyone in the movie talked like you would expect for a World War I movie. But his complaint was that Chris Pine sounded too modern. And thinking back on that, I do get where he's coming from. I understand that complaint, but I will say this, I kind of just ignore it, because Chris Pine was that good in his performance. So, I don't know. It probably won't bother the general masses, but even I kind of noticed that he seemed very Chris Pine-y. That's fine. It's not exactly a World War I person, but it works. It definitely works. So yeah. Other characters, the other Amazons, they were okay. They didn't really have much screen time, so there's not much to talk about. I liked that Wonder Woman kind of had her Howling Commandos. Like, in the first Captain America movie, he had his team, basically. He had Bucky, which you can relate to Chris Pine in this movie. Somewhat. Captain America had Bucky. He had Dum Dum Dugan, I think. The Chinese guy, the black guy. It's terrible. I don't know their names. I'm sorry. They didn't have a lot of screen time in that movie, but he had his team. He had the Howling Commandos. Wonder Woman kind of has that in this movie. She has Steve Trevor and a marksman named Charlie, a linguist, I don't remember his name, and another guy they call Chief. I don't exactly remember his special thing about him, but I mean it doesn't really matter. But they were all fine. They were all very interesting, unique characters. Even from which it's a good thing that they made them different, actually, from the Howling Commandos. None of them really reminded me of the Howling Commandos, which is good because in this sort of movie maybe it's just me because I love the first Captain America movie. It's my favorite movie of all time. Some people, might remember the first Captain America movie and be comparing Wonder Woman to that. Because it is kind of, it's similar, it's a world war, they're trying to stop this big bad with their technology. The big bad has his, scientist and, stuff like that. It's German. Again, like I said, it's another world war. She has, her team like Captain America did. But I feel they're very different, which is good. They did a good job of differentiating Wonder Woman from Captain America, from World War II, which was a good job. So, other than that, probably the only other character I can mention is Ares, the God of War, because he is in this, obviously. There's a bit of a twist with him. I'm not going to give that away. But I felt like I feel like he could have been a very stereotypical villain, but he kind of wasn't. He's kind of built up to just be, this sort of a-hole who just wants, war and destruction and all that. That's kind of where they started going, but it does change up towards the end with Ares. I'm not going to give away anything else about that. But yeah, I feel like it was good that they took a different direction with him. Maybe he could have used a little bit more screen time, but he was a decent villain. And once you really start to see, his master plan, it does come together well. So, yeah, that's pretty much characters. Cinematography and special effects. Cinematography is amazing in this movie, probably better than the other DC films. I didn't really notice much CG. I know that obviously there was a ton of CG there, but it never bothered me. Like, I guess it wasn't bad CG, which is good. Towards the beginning of the movie, there's a sequence, telling this story of the gods. It's a beautiful scene, and I love the way it was shot. It might actually look really good in 3D. I don't know. I don't see movies in 3D. I don't like 3D. I feel it adds nothing to the movie. But if you like 3D, that's fine. It's your opinion. This is my opinion. But yeah. It was a really well developed scene. It's completely CG, basically. but it's interestingly developed, I suppose. Maybe not developed, but created. It's a very interesting scene. The rest of it, again, is perfectly shot. It was, yeah, just really well shot. There were good effects, everything, and if I can say, this is really good action. Like, it's interesting that there are, like, slow-mo shots in this movie, but they feel better directed than in a Zack Snyder movie in the other DC films. This really felt like it was, like, it kind of needed this, the slow-mo. Whereas the other movies, they don't really need slow-mo. Like, occasionally you'll just see, like, you know, people are just fighting and then just suddenly slow-mo and stuff like that. Like, you don't really need that. Here, things are going pretty fast, and so when you slow down, you really appreciate that. So, it was a good use of slow-mo, is all I'm saying. Alright, my hair is getting damp from just sitting here. This is terrible. It might, I don't know, it's probably fine. Music and sound is really good. There's one point, it's early on, but it sounds like there's thunder, but actually it's just like weapons fire from, like, you know, maybe miles away. That was a good touch, because it really did sound like thunder, but at the same time it was, you could hear that it was different enough, like, once you learn that it is like gunfire and stuff, it's like, yeah, that does sound like it. So, sorry, my voice is getting a little dry. Still have my Coke from the theater. I refilled it. Coke is like $6 at AMC. Like, yeah, I'm getting a refill. Other than that, for music and sound, I would say good soundtrack overall. They did use Wonder Woman's theme from Batman v Superman, which is great. It's an amazing theme. But they didn't just, you know, play it and that's it. They did update it and really, like, work it in. Like, there would be, like, a quieter moment, and you just hear, like, a do-do-do-do-do, like, it would be slower, and then eventually, you know, when she starts really fighting, then it did really amp up, and you really heard that guitar, like, shred, and so that was awesome. Going into these last couple things on my list, we're just going to run through these real quick. Jump scare warning, there are none, which is good. They didn't really allude to that at all. Like, they didn't set up jump scares that didn't happen. Yeah, so that's good. Movie length, I don't know the movie length offhand, but here it is. Movie length was fine. I didn't mind it at all. It was a very fast-paced movie, which was good. I suppose, normally I measure movie length on if I get uncomfortable in my seat, but I can't fairly say that with this movie, because it was very, very hot and I was just uncomfortable the entire time. But like I said, I was watching a good movie, so I didn't really mind. After credits scene, I did not actually stay after the credits to see if there was a scene, but I looked it up online and there was no after credits scene, so oh well. That it seems like DC is not doing that, which is fine. They want to differentiate from Marvel. Okay, that's fine. I'm not really going to go into spoilers here, but let's just go into my final verdict. Final verdict for Wonder Woman. It was amazing. It's probably, I mean, I'd say it's not a perfect movie, but it's pretty close. And it's not like, it's not like a great movie, like this is not going to be like a Citizen Kane type of movie at all. But this is, it's just a fun, good movie. It is better than some Marvel movies, not all, but some. And yeah, it's a really, really good DC movie, which is very hard to find these days. Yeah, that is pretty much that. I loved it. I am totally going to get it on DVD because that was just amazing. I might not even watch the other DCEU movies, like Man of Steel, The Suicide Squad. I was like, I'll just pop this in because this is amazing. It stands on its own. You don't need to watch anything else. As for Justice League, which is coming out in November, I don't know. It's got Goyer in it. I hate Goyer. Goyer is awful. Zack Snyder, I'm giving a pass to. I finally decided that I'm done kind of criticizing Zack Snyder, because Zack Snyder actually was a writer in Wonder Woman, which was a very interesting thing to find out. I don't care if they bring in Zack Snyder for the Justice League movies. Fine, whatever. Justice League is going to have Goyer. I'm not like... It's not that I'm not looking forward to it. I'm just not as excited. I'm just like, alright, another DC movie. Let's see if this one is good. Whereas with Wonder Woman, I was very cautiously optimistic with this movie. Because I was thinking, oh my gosh, this has to be good. This has to be good. This has to be good. Please, please be good. And it was. It was amazing. And if they want to do another Wonder Woman movie, like what she was doing in World War II or something, I'm there. Maybe even day one I'd go to that movie, because this was amazing. And I loved it. And kind of the kid in me wants a toy of Wonder Woman's sword and shield. That's just the kid in me. But yeah, that is pretty much that. End cards are going to pop up right about now. You can click on those. You can subscribe. You can follow 7th Hour Films, if I can say it right, on Twitter at 7th Hour Films. And that's basically it. I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.